just recently, and you're welcome to put this out on the podcast. Just recently, in the last 5 years, I've been diagnosed with autism and ADHD. So I've had both of those on the knowledge as well.
You should have come and see me. I diagnosed you with that 15 years ago. You should ask him that. This geezer's got ADHD and autism. Thank you for supporting our channel. Thank you for supporting WizApps. Please like, subscribe, comment, and hit the notification bell for any future videos. Taxi! Well, let's go back to an introduction. Alex White's in the house. Alex White, the legend, the man, the epic adventure, the man of history and mystery. And it's really is. First of all, it's good to see you, Alex. I haven't seen you for a while.
Dean, you know, you were the first person that showed me any generosity on this journey.
Oh, I don't know about generosity. I needed your money.
No. You really did show me a lot of generosity, and there was an honesty with the school that I loved. You know, and we said this earlier, you know, I love the fact that you walk into the school, you say, oh, I want all 4 books, I want to get going, and you refuse. You refuse to take the money. It's, no, buy book 1, get on with it. You may not even finish book 1, so why are you buying all 4 books? And it was that was my initial kind of thing of, wait a minute, this is more than just kind of selling products. This is, for you, this is kind of much more than just the money side of it. And, you know, I did go to the other schools and I did purchase books, and they were quite happy selling me absolutely everything on day one. And so that was one of the things that was quite important to me early on, because it's a different attitude to this process.
I think that stems from Annette, to be honest, at the time, because Annette would always say, you know, how are we doing okay? Are we earning enough money to survive? Be good at what you do. And people will buy it if you're good at it. I think she more had an attitude of, you build it and they will come, the kind of, what was it, from Field of Dreams movie? Yeah. And we kind of just always tried to enjoy what we was doing. And I have always for my whole life been anti-hard sell. Anyone tries to hard sell me, I think maybe it's an English cultural thing. We walk away from hard sell. Absolutely.
And I think that's, you know, it's an important kind of thing. I see money as a byproduct of doing a good job, right? That's how I sort of look at life. You know, you get paid as a reward for doing something good, right? And so for me, it isn't that you leave the house, jump in the cab, go out to work to earn money, even though there's obviously that motivation. It's, I want to go and do a good job, and in return I'm going to get paid reasonable money. I mean, some of the tips I've had, I've had days where I've had over £200 in tips.
Right? In the cab?
In the cab. And that
was favours for sailors, wasn't it, Alex?
And that was 3 £50 tips from 3 different customers plus other tips. So, you know, it wasn't like a one-off.
Customer service, if you do it.
But I think that's the important thing. That's one of the differentiators between jumping in a mini cab and a black cab. Right? It's service, right? And actually, you should be striving to provide a better service. You know, the vehicle is a better quality vehicle than 99% of the mini cabs out there. You know, some of the top end Vitos and things like that are very, very nice and comfortable, but they're not purpose built. So you've got to differentiate on service. You have to. You've got no choice. So anyone that thinks that you're going to go out and emulate a mini cab in terms of service, but charge a higher price, I'm sorry, but people are going to see through that very quickly. And I really do believe that this is where we're at as an industry, is that we have to differentiate. And that's why, for me, the knowledge is critical. It really is. It's a critical differentiator. Right, in terms of when you're doing the job, the distraction level of a black cab driver over a mini cab driver is minimal. You know, it's a really small part of what we do, because we've got both eyes on the road. We know what's coming up next, left and right. You know, we're much more prepared than a guy that is literally staring at a screen going, you know, oh, where am I going now? You know, they're not even in the right lane, you know, and you see them swerve all over the road, jump lights and all of that kind of thing. And that is the difference. That's what the knowledge buys you. It buys you that preparation, right? When you're actually doing the job. It's like having a skilled builder in your house. He's preempting. He's not reacting. He's preempting problems before they've even occurred. Yeah. And that's what you get with someone that's done the knowledge. Is you've got that whole thing of, I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm walking into. I can see the road before I even see the road. You know, you're driving down the Euston Road, right? Marylebone Road, you know that Euston Road's next. You know that Pentonville Road's next. You know what's coming up. Yeah. But for a guy on a Satnav, he's just looking at this like line on the map and doesn't understand what's going on.
I've used Satnav a few times in Turkey. And the thing I always found is it says turn right. What, this right?
Yeah.
Or that right.
Yeah.
And you're suddenly in that, Jesus Christ. And you take the wrong thing, especially when you get these mixed slip roads. Take the next slip. There could be three divisions of slip.
Yeah.
Do I stay in which one? So I find Satnav difficult in that respect. And obviously you can't, using it, again, like you say, as a professional, that's not correct. Using it as an amateur, as a day-to-day thing, that's okay. But no, the knowledge is separate.
It's key. It's key. I mean, it's almost the same as using a calculator, right? Yeah. There is a time and a place to use a calculator, right? But if you're a mathematician with a calculator, 99% of the time you're going to go, I can actually do this better than the calculator without having to pick this thing up and rely on this other device, because my brain is capable of doing this job. And a mathematician will enjoy doing the job over using a calculator. But every now and again, they might use a calculator. But it's, you know, few and far between. Yeah. And it is exactly the same for the knowledge. You know, if we're going to go out driving, you'd much rather know what you're going to do. You're preempting everything. It's got to be safer.
Yeah.
You know, my son recently has started to ride a motorbike. And I said to him, it's half the problem here is about how good you are, right, on the road. I said, the other half of the problem is how bad everyone else is. Right. And if you're already preoccupied and they're preoccupied, you've got a problem on your hands. Right. And if you look at the accident stats, black cabs to mini cabs, which have been blurred hugely, deliberately, the difference is worlds apart. I mean, especially when we first had the Ubers arrive, the accident stats around London were just horrendous. It was awful. Absolutely awful. And I think there was people that were desperate to get black cab standard at Uber prices, right? And we all know where that ended up, right? It's for me, the Uber thing was always about capture the market and then we're going to put our prices up and probably go higher than the black cab anyway.
Yeah.
It was never about
so up the market.
It was blow us all out the water, finish us off, and then, you know, take the market over.
And what I find always sad about it as well is it was the division of wealth. This was about feeding everything up to a CEO, whereas the black cab trade is the ideal scenario for the distribution of the wealth that's taken in from this industry. You can't beat it.
It's one of the last bastions of kind of working class, but also self-employed, but truly self-employed. Choose your hours, do the slots that you want. You know, it's one of the last things where we've got that level of control, and it's wonderful. You know, it was never a case of, oh, you know, when am I going to go on holiday? Well, no, I'll fit around the family and you tell me when we're going on holiday. Right? And that was one of the beauties. I remember going to my son's open day, sports day, and there was a lot of green badge drivers in that area. The only dads at that sports day were green badge drivers. Yeah. And that told me an awful lot about the flexibility of this job.
Yeah. The things in life that you mustn't miss, that you don't have to miss.
Yeah. And you just say, I'm not going to work today. Yeah. I'll work Saturday instead, you know, or do, you know, a longer shift to make up the hours. That is pure flexibility. Yeah. It's brilliant. And yeah, okay, the costs have gone up with the vehicles and everything else, you know, and it does mean that we have to work a little bit harder. You know, the averages when I passed out was that you would work your Monday to pay your cab off for the week, and, you know, the rest of the week was yours to earn. Nowadays, I think that's much more of a struggle, and you're probably into Tuesday, maybe even a little bit of Wednesday before you've covered your cab costs, before the rest of it is your gross profit. But that still doesn't mean that it's a bad job. It's still a great job.
Yeah, still a great job. Just a bit about you, Alex. I mean, we go back a long way now. I mean, I don't know, it's going to be 15 years easily, something like that. You came to driving a cab before you was a cab driver. You were a database developer and programmer.
Yeah, I was a programmer.
Yeah.
Yep. I owned an IT company. Yeah. I'd actually made a conscious decision to leave IT. And one of the, it was quite interesting because I actually sat down and really thought through what I wanted in the next career. Yeah. And one of the criterias was that I could go to work, I could do my day's work, finish my day's work, and the next day there was nothing dragging over from the day before, right? Which in IT, that is a constant. Yeah. You know, you're always kind of going, oh, I haven't finished that, I've got to do this again. That's one of the beauties of the job. You know, once the passengers got out and you've got paid, that job's finished. It's complete. And that was why I picked the black cab trade, was because I was looking for a job where I can pick it up, put it down, and I haven't got this drag along of kind of, oh no, I've still got to do this, I've still got to do that, got to finish this off from yesterday. You don't have that.
Yeah. The day's ended, the job's ended.
Absolutely. Your day's finished.
You carry over to
the next. You count your money up for the day and you know where you're at. And it's brilliant in that sense. So, you know, I came into this trade, and unfortunately for me, I knew a lot of green badge drivers at the time, and they kind of gave me a false impression of how easy it was going to be. You know, the amount of times I heard, oh, Al, you'll breeze it. You'll have it done in a couple of years. And, you know, I heard that over and over and over again. And one thing I learned very, very quickly about the knowledge is it's not about intelligence, right? Intelligence will get you so far, right? But actually what it is it's tenacity. It's that I'm struggling, but I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep pushing, push, and until I'm done. And, you know, it's a long slog. Yeah. This is not a marathon. It is way more than a marathon. And you have to have a lot inside you to keep going when you've had those appearances, and we've all had them, where you've gone in and they've destroyed you. I mean, I walked out of one appearance crying because I got destroyed so badly. And whilst a lot of people say, oh, that's bullying, you know, you shouldn't do that and so on, that examiner, I'm not going to name the person, but that examiner said to me, I'm no worse than your worst passenger. And that was so true. And that examiner said that to me the day I picked my badge up and I walked out the room. That examiner was standing there and said that to me at that moment. And that examiner was absolutely right. Yeah. And that's part of what the knowledge is about. And sitting in that chair, which is nerve-wracking, that's one of the things is, what are you going to do when you're under pressure? How are you going to react? You know, are you going to explode? Because if you are, you're no good as a cab driver.
But you've hit on something now that I think has slightly changed, because to get a little political, wokeness has made things a little different. So back in the day, it was always said that when you was doing the knowledge, it was the longest job interview. And when you see it from the perspective of a job interview, it isn't the fact of whether you're good at the knowledge or bad at the knowledge or pass the test or not pass the test. It's always, is this guy going to make a good cab driver? So there's some elements of passing these tests that there's them gauging you. And that kind of idea has kind of been lost and replaced with, have you passed the tests? And you're missing the point. Is this person going to be a good cab driver? Was the idea previously, and now it's, well, he's passed the test, so we pass him out. We could almost tell exactly who is going to lose their badge and who is not going to lose their badge as they're going along. Yeah, I do remember examiners saying to me back in the old days that they'd have a troublemaker on the knowledge who's complaining about their treatment. They complain about their treatment because they're not getting through as quickly as they expected. They're not getting through as quickly as they expected because they're not a very nice person. But they're also becoming argumentative and everything else. And I remember, I think it was with Mr. Bishop, and he basically said, we're going to pass him out. We'll pass him out because we just don't foresee that his badge is going to last very long anyway. And it's just aggravation having him in our department. So we'll give him the badge. He can do the job. But we foresee within 1 or 2 years, the badge will be coming back.
Yeah.
And they were normally right. They could see, and talking classically about a guy who's on the rank at the moment over Waitrose with Ben, who's one of the students here. This student's a lovely student, but it is quite a funny little story because the examiner had phoned me to say, Dean, you have a student, and I'll say his first name's Jamie, and Jamie will know who he is. He's very argumentative, and he's always, everything that we tell him that he's doing wrong or he's made a mistake, he doesn't accept it. He just argues back with us. And he's a nice guy, but you need to sort of speak to him. So I said, okay. And I remember I was with Annette at the time. Annette's standing in, I'm next to Annette, and we're speaking to this Jamie. I said, Jamie, listen, there's a call's come in from an examiner. Mom Sadler had phoned me to tell me that you have a problem and that you're argumentative. And he said, I'm not argumentative. we couldn't believe it. He's arguing about the fact of not being argumentative.
Yeah.
It was like, wow, Jamie, come on. You in this game, we've got to have some way of dealing with people on a day-to-day that's calm. Because you're not going to win any arguments in this game. You're trying to change someone's political views. You can't do that.
It's impossible.
So that was classic with Jamie. Another thing with yourself, Alex, historically, I mean, we've always been developing as best the ideas as we can to make the knowledge as easy for people to study as possible, to have all the gadgets available. And I can't say this without not mentioning Stephen Archer, which is where I think a lot of it started. You remember Map Vision because I think you might have used Map Vision. Yeah. So Map Vision was a software made by an English company that then sold and became the framework for Microsoft's map software. Do you remember what they called it?
Yeah, Map Point, or it was something like that.
And Microsoft gave me the rights to the old Map Vision, and Stephen Archer developed the fact of all the pins and this idea of pinning maps with points that were knowledge related, because that was our sector is slightly unique in that sense, isn't it? So it's okay having Google Maps, it's got everything on it, but we need selective. And I don't know if you know this now, but there is now a definitive list of points. 6,306, I think it works out, of points that you need to know. So from Stephen Archer, there was Map Vision, and then beyond that became Alan Googe, who was another database developer. And from Alan, we made a PC-based software. But then when I met yourself, we went into the realms of creating app-based software, which was obviously where it needed to go.
Yes.
And well, that kind of turned the whole world on its head, didn't it? We did WizBooks, which was the Blue Book runs. WizPoints, for the original WizPoints, which was the points daily sheets thing. We didn't do a third one, did we?
No. So how it really started was I started with a Windows-based app for points. And
was that one you developed, or the Alan Googe one?
Yeah. So this was after Alan's work. I developed a Windows one that really kind of scraped the sheets for points and everything else. And it was that sparked my imagination for the apps, because I was kind of going, I don't want to carry a laptop on the bike and, move around with a Windows-based machine. And I actually did try with Windows-based handhelds. I, really looked at that. Before I came to you, I looked at that and I went, this is too expensive. Right. And now we're talking about dedicated devices that haven't really got any other use other than they're good for the knowledge to put on the front of the bike. Yeah. And I immediately threw that idea out. But I do remember there was, I wouldn't say it was like you were against it, but there was a lot of resistance from you initially, because I kept on coming into you and saying, Dean, why are we doing this paper-based system? You're going, well, it's been done that way, it works, just leave it alone. And I think I pestered you enough that there was one day where you said to me, you said, right, I've got a bit of time, talk to me, explain to me what you're trying to get across. And I said, look, we've got to do mobile-based apps, right? We've got to find a way of containing all of that data onto a handheld device. People are going on holiday to Spain and things like that, and they're carrying all 4 books with them, and they're not reading them. This is the funny thing. You actually talk to these guys that are putting the 4 blue books into their holiday luggage, and you say to them when they come back, you go, how many runs did you call? Oh, I didn't. Didn't do it. And you kind of going, well, that's a complete waste of effort and everything else. So that was my push. My push was, let's get this into the palm of their hand so that they can be super flexible. And I got to a point where I wasn't calling 80 runs in a go. I was calling 15 to 20 here, 15 to 20 there. And that was my process. I remember sitting in a cafe in Euston Station, and I was sitting with a friend of mine, and I said to him, he wasn't on the knowledge. I said, I've got to call over about 10 or 15 runs. I said, I hope you don't mind. You know, it's one of the things with the knowledge, you get used to listening to your own voice, which is it's quite unnerving at first when you're speaking out loud in front of other people. And, you know, it takes a bit of time to get used to the fact that I actually don't care what you think about what I'm doing. And I remember calling over these runs in this cafe that was full of people, and I'm calling them over off my phone out loud. And, you know, my friend was, oh, this is like really weird. And I said, but this is the process.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is, right, is that you're engaging so many different senses by the verbal calling over, that it's actually the best way to actually imprint it on your mind, because you're using your brain, you're speaking the words, you're hearing what you're saying, right? So you're engaging an awful lot of senses. And if you're reading it off any kind of paper, you're engaging your eyesight as well. And I always found that the trick with the knowledge was engage as many of your senses as possible. And I remember a guy giving me a piece of advice, and it was a really good piece of advice. He said, that point that doesn't stick, you know, that one that's really irritating you keep on going back to it. You've been back to it 10 times. He said, sit outside it and eat a sandwich. I said, what? He said, sit outside it and eat a sandwich. Memory. He said, you're going to create a memory, but it's the taste of the sandwich is going to be the extra sense that locks that piece of information in. And he said, it doesn't matter what you're eating. It's the fact that you're now eating whilst you're learning, that you've engaged these extra senses, and the information used to go in. And, you know, this is 1 in 1,000 points where you've got that one that just doesn't go in.
For all of us, it's a different point as well. It's funny, that one. Yeah. But you've also made me think of something else, because it's quite important what you've hit upon here. You know, the technique, we try to give people as many aids as possible. And there's the technique with the app, the WizBooks. The original WizBooks did it, and the WizRuns does it, where you get the title of the run and you tap the screen and you display one road at a time. Now, it's a very, very simple idea, but I try to tell people, look, you're still using visual triggers to trigger the memory of the next road name. The better technique is to, and this is again going out for people to learn from, is look at the title, and that's it. Say the run, then display the run, so that you've seen if you said it, because you'll remember if you said it correctly. But the trigger of, if you just tap it and it says leave on left green lanes, the brain remembers that visual is connected to what the next word is, and it needs the visual to trigger the next memory. And people are always, I've seen them over the years, the ones that are weakest at calling over, you take away the walking stick of the app and suddenly they're in a different realm of hurt and they can't say it. So this idea of engaging the brain, be careful of the triggers that you're using, because those triggers, unless you're being gifted those triggers in your appearance, which you're not going to be, it's not going to help that much. So try calling over without the aid of displaying one road at a time. Display it all afterwards to see if you've called it correctly. The other thing, what I'd just add is, it's always generally a good rule of thumb just to record yourself. Certainly if you're a beginner, record the vocal if you are not confident that you're saying it correctly. If you're confident, which we become, don't we? We can know exactly that we've made a mistake and go back. We don't need any recording device. So the more advanced you become, you don't need that. But as a beginner, record it, because you need to double check just to see that you are actually saying what you think you're saying.
And I think that's an important thing. I mean, I did my first run in 2010. So we're talking 15 years after I did, green lanes down. I can still call that run. I can still call it, and I can still call it perfectly.
You can call it how it was written back then, 15 years
Absolutely.
ago.
It's probably changed now, because it used to be leave on left green lanes, right and right, Highbury New Park, left Highbury Grove, right St Paul's Road, comply Highbury Corner, leave by Upper Street, right Barnsbury Street, left Milner, place forward, no, left Milner, place forward, see.
There was a way of remembering it for me. It was Piggy in the middle. Square, place, square. The place was in the middle of the two squares.
Right, okay.
So, but you was good enough there.
Yeah.
That's 20 years ago, or
15 years ago.
Yeah.
And, it's that rote memory. I'm going back to a previous point that we've discussed. the knowledge isn't about intelligence. And anyone that thinks they're going to outsmart this process, right, is wasting their time. Right. That's a key thing here. The guys and girls that I've seen do really well, they're not trying to reinvent the wheel. They're not trying to be smart. They're just sitting there and doing their time. Right. And they're the ones that succeed. They plod, they just get on with it, and they get through.
I used to compare this to digging a hole, basically. You just one shovel at a time. You must keep shoveling. If you stop shoveling and distract yourself over here with other aspects, you're not getting anywhere. And I think I see it in abundance. People not realizing that whatever it is they're trying to do that they think is contributing towards their knowledge isn't. And very often, the funny one with the apps, in a sense, people, when you're doing the Points app, it collects all your data. And then all of a sudden they lose all their data and the app goes back to zero, whatever reason or however they've done it. And they go into meltdown. You've lost zero. I tried to explain to them psychologically, everything you have is in your head. And sometimes it's good to have the app go back to zero and start afresh. Yeah, but it had all of my notes. So your notes are in either here or they were rubbish anyway. You lose absolutely nothing. It's such a strange, but then they spend days trying to recover it. And it's like, you have just done nothing. You have literally wasted your time and contributed nothing towards your knowledge. So the loss of this data is irrelevant. You have what you've learned. It's such a strange psychological thing that they have.
Yeah.
Bit OCD, really.
You know, when you first start out, you haven't got the confidence in what your brain is actually capable of doing. And I understand at that moment in time where you're sitting there on the bike, you know, you're outside the Manor House station and you're kind of going, right, what am I doing? Yeah. Am I even facing in the right direction? You know, and I get that you're going to get off the bike, right, when you're, you know, in Gibson Square and go, I need to call this over 50 times, you know, I really need to implant it in the brain. No, actually, the thing to do here is call it over a couple of times, get to the next run, get on with that one, right, and move on quickly as possible and get your runs done. Because what you want to do is get off the bike, right? You need to do those runs. You physically need to actually do the run, right? And I do not agree with doing these runs on Google or anything. No. You physically got to get on the bike.
Got to create memories.
And you've got to do the journey, right? It's the only way that you get the true visuals of kind of what's going on. So for me, it wasn't that you battered the calling out, the note taking and everything on the run. It's get that run done, get on to the next one, move on. By the time I was on book 4, I was doing 16 runs a day because I already understood how my brain was assimilating this information. And I was going, I can do 16, right? Because I know what's going in and I know where I'm going to struggle on these runs. You know, I remember, I think it was maybe book 2, list 3, there was all those stretums and I really struggled with them. It might be book 1 actually, but so I really struggled with Streatham because the roads weren't necessarily straight. They kind of curved round and things like that. So you couldn't get the visual as much. Yeah. I just reran them, you know, and this is what I did when I finished the blue book. I looked at all of my weaknesses in terms of, can I visualize what I've done? I went, just run the ones that I don't feel I'm confident on.
Yeah.
And I sat in certain areas. So Dulwich was an area that I really struggled with initially. And so I went back to Dulwich and I sat there and I went, I've really struggled with this junction, you know, and how it's kind of laid out, and had a good look at it and started calling over at the side of the road. And that's really where the apps, for me, made a big difference. I was able to go out on the bike, do my work and call over whilst out on the bike with all my stuff. And that was a big thing for me, to be able to kind of mix that up a little bit, you know, especially when you're pointing, you know, you're going out, and if you're going to the opposite end of London, you're actually going through a ton of areas that you've gone through, you know, 50, 100 times before. So you know everything, kind of that first section. And it's only that last little bit. So you actually just want to get there as quickly as possible and spend as much time in Tottenham, which was the opposite side of London to me, spend as much time just riding around the roads and just trying to familiarise yourself with the junctions. And I had this with one examiner. I think it was, I can't remember the police station. It might have been Tottenham Police Station, but it was one of those police stations up there. And I got asked it in an appearance and I left it on the right. And the examiner stopped me straight away. Said, can you leave that on the right? And I said, yeah, you can. I said, it's tight. Don't get me wrong. It's really tight, but you can leave it on the right. You can definitely do it. But yeah, I get where you're coming from. It is tight. And he said, all I wanted to know was, have you been there?
And he said that you've been there.
Yeah. And the fact that you're debating it with me and telling me it's tight, I know you've been there. And I know that you've sat outside it. And he goes, that's all I'm really after here.
Yes. To counteract that little story, though, I did have the similar thing with Mr. Price, and we spoke about it many times before he died. Always laughing about the appearance. He asked me Putney Hospital, which is gone now. And for the life of me, I think it's called Lower Common. I'll have to check. But there was Lower Richmond Road and Lower Common, a little side road, and it had an in and out. And I'd got it the wrong way round. And he said to me, have you been there? And I said, yes, sir. He said, but the in and out is the other way around. He said, no. I said, no, sir, they changed it. He said, I'm very glad you've been there. Yeah. And I thought, oh, I've got away with that one. I've got away with murder today. I said, they changed the in and the out. And he said, I remembered it because he went back and checked because it was confusing the hell out of him. But we got no marks back then.
Yeah.
Did you get scores? Was you on the A, B, C's and D's?
Yeah. So at first it was the kind of, you passed or you failed and everything else and so on. And the scoring got more and more detailed. So you got more and more feedback about kind of what you've done wrong and so on and so forth. And so by the end, I was on kind of this whole thing of you scored 6 on that run, 7 on that, 8 on that. And, you're only looking for 6s. 4 6s will do me. Move on. I'm only looking for C's. I'm not looking for A's.
I know, that's such a thing, Alex. So many people don't understand that one. And one of the things we try and emphasize over the years, a very, very top percentage of people contain all of the wonderful, clever runs or whatever. Every else, you're average. You need to hit the average runs.
Yep.
The more you go for the clever run, the more you put yourself in danger of running into a cul-de-sac, dropping a few road names, whereas you could have gone for something very, very simple that would have got you there and got you your 6. Yep. So always the philosophy of aiming for 6 per run is it. Now, obviously, if you scored low on one run, you've got to compensate somewhere else. Yep. But that's the deal.
Yes, it is. You're looking to get through that appearance and not get a D.
Yeah, that's it.
that's the key, right? Anything beyond a D is success.
Yeah.
Right. And okay, getting A's and double A's, it sounds great. But the actual mathematics is a B's no good to you unless you've got 3 in a row.
True. You don't need a B. And double A's have gone now.
Right, okay.
So there's no more double A's.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know the story with the double A. We have Ian Beetlestone was on the show and I didn't, student. And Ian went for his first 56 and Mr. Wilkin, being who he is, wanted to throw the spanner in the works to prove that for some reason double A's are bad. So to prove his point, he asked 4 blue book runs to a guy on his first 56, which gives him a double A, which makes him on 28s the very next appearance. And obviously he went for his 28s out of his depth twice round, comes back, ends up back on his first 56. Yeah. So the double A, it was a bit nasty in a sense, but he was trying to make his point. And my point would be very often with the examiners, they're kind of a law unto themselves. It wasn't his duty to do that. It was obvious what he was doing.
Yeah.
You're going to ask 4 blue book runs, they answer them perfectly. You're obligated to give them a double A with 4 perfect runs.
The appearance side of it, you get into a flow. And I had a lot of appearances. By the end, I'd been in front of most of the examiners, had a real hard time with a couple of them, but I always kept the respect for those examiners. You never kind of stepped out of line and kind of sort of said, I feel like I've been unfairly treated.
No, you don't want to go above the parapet.
And, I never felt like, I should complain about this. You took them on the chin, right? You took that D on the chin, wipe your mouth. Sorry, sir. I'm really sorry. I feel like I've wasted your time today. I will do better next time. That's what they want to hear. That's what you've got to do, right? The idea is they want to see you bounce back, right? And not kind of go, well, I think this is unfair. It doesn't work like that. I mean, I had some funny appearances as well. There was one with Mr. Gunning, which was funny. He had the chair. The chair was next to his desk, and he said, "Sit down." So I thought, I'm not touching the chair. I'm just going to sit where it is. I'm not going to move it. So I'm almost sitting next to him. And he said, "You need to move the chair." And I said, "Okay, sir." And I'm thinking, this is like a trick question. "Where would you like me to put the chair, sir?" And he said, "Anywhere where you can't see my map."
Was it Mr. Gunning?
Yeah.
Mr. Gunning is an excellent examiner.
He's brilliant.
And his level is very high and great.
Yeah.
So it's always good to have one difficult examiner that's making you have to think deeper about your questions and everything else. So,
but you and I did, we did a meeting with TFL. And we had Mark Gunning. I think it was David. I can't remember the other examiner. He was almost head examiner at one point. But we had a few people from TFL there, and I remember talking to Mark afterwards, and he said, "I know I'm hard." He goes, "But you need someone like me in this process to keep everyone on their toes a little bit." He said, "My runs aren't that difficult." He said, "What I do is I kind of put you into a horrible position where you can't see the end of the run, you know."
In a sense, though, as well, his questions are him being thoughtful about the question. I think if I was an examiner, I'd be lazy. I'd pick 2 random points and ask it and see how you run it. Putting effort into the question is actually quite difficult. You've got to sit down, look at what the 2 start and finish points and see what puzzles you're creating. So he's always done that, and he has the skill level to back that up, which is what you need to be. You don't want to be doing that. Everybody used to always say, and it's actually true of nearly every examiner, that if you turned around and fired the questions back at the examiner, they wouldn't be able to answer them. That's true, because anybody who's finished the knowledge will tell you that's true. You can't sustain what we did. No one can sustain it. So outside of the knowledge, if it's over, you're not going to be that. But we can, with our skills, sit down at a map and figure out something that would be a little bit puzzling for nearly everybody.
Yep.
And that's not easy to do. So he's keeping them much on their toes. In that sense.
And I think that's important. I really do. I think you do need that person in the process that's going to kind of.
There's always one.
Yeah. But
you weren't in your days of Orms, though, was you?
No, not at all. I mean, even Tony Swire.
Yeah, he was
if you got him on a day where he was going to hit you with points in a little area, he could get a cluster of 15 points within 100 meters of each other, and you are done for. If you haven't been there, that's it. Your appearance is over.
When Mr. Swire first started, he was a nightmare.
Yep.
I mean, he was terrifying. He really destroyed. He mellowed so lovely over the years. But when he first started, my goodness, he was ripping people apart by accident.
Yep.
And he had a very, very strange knowledge. Not strange in a bad sense. It was just.
It was incredible.
What he knew,
He had this ability, and everyone's had that Swire appearance where he go, "So, Mr. White, take me from Alexander Square to such and such," and he wanted to know a little bit about you, and then he was kind of evolving the appearance based around that.
You know what he was? He was like a Darren Brown of the knowledge.
Yes,
he was mind reading you in some sense, and then putting on a plate things that you didn't realise he's deducted from looking at your name and address. He's deducted that he actually knows your uncle. Yeah. And your uncle works for the Joneses, the milk float place. So he's asking you the milk float place and you think, why does he ask me that? And he's like, it's all written here.
Yeah. But that was the beauty of the guy, right? Is you didn't know what you were going to get. And, for me, I didn't have Tony Swire until I was almost all of the way through the knowledge. Yeah. I remember it implicitly. I was 3-2 down, 21s. And Mr. Swire called me in, and I'm thinking, whoa, because I'm about to get redlined or, go 3-all. And that was a pretty good appearance. He went reasonably well on me. And it was one of those custom appearances. So it was all about me. And the runs weren't difficult. I mean, one of the runs was Alexander Square, and you had to run it all the way down Fulham Road. And, it wasn't a difficult run.
Well, Alexander Square was always a difficult point, if I remember.
That's right. The key thing he was looking for there was, because it's one ways, right, is can you get out of there? Can you get out the way that you come?
Point.
Yeah. So, and then I got him the second time. I passed with him, got to 3-all. And my final comment to him as I was walking out of the room, I said, "Sir, I desperately need you next time." Right, that was actually my comment to him. I said, "Thank you for the appearance. I desperately need you next time." And he called me. The next appearance, there he was. And I went, oh. I said, "Someone's looking down at me, sir." And he said, "Why is that?" And I said, "Because I had one of my best appearances with you. And I just need a little bit of a break." I said, "I'm not asking for favours here." I said, "I'm just looking for, a reasonable appearance. It comes back to the averages. I don't want to set the world on fire. I just need to pass. I just want to get through this." And I remember my last question on the knowledge, and it was all the way from over here to all the way over to Battersea Power Station. And what he kept on doing was, as I was calling the run, he kept on interrupting me. And he was interrupting me, going, no, that road's now closed. The fire brigade had closed that road. And you go, "Oh, left onto this bridge." And he'd go, no, that's now closed. Think again. And he did this about 5 or 6 times all the way through that run. And it was quite funny. At the end of it was nerve-wracking. I didn't think I'd passed. Right? That was the key thing. I was at the end of those 4 runs, I was sitting there going, I have just been redlined. This is the problem. And what he'd done, he got the feedback sheet and he screwed it up and threw it at me, right? And said, "I hope you still got your knowledge bike because you're going to need it." Right. So, right. Okay, fine. No problem. I pick up this bit of paper and I'm like, at this point, I'm wanting to cry and everything else. And I'm about to walk out the room and he said, "Where are you going?" I said, "Well, sir, I've obviously wasted your time today. I don't want to waste any more of it. I'm going to go home and have a cry." And he he said to me at that point, he said, "Open the thing up." And all he had on the feedback form was "Congratulations." At which point I
got your rec on that moment.
Yeah, that was the point where I got my rec. And it was a moment. I mean, look, for everyone that gets their rec on this process, that is a moment. That is a serious,
What a way to do it.
But he'd done that same thing to several other people around that time,
Enjoying himself, basically.
Yeah, but he knew before that appearance even started that he was, unless I really screwed up, I was going to get my rec that day. As far as he was concerned, I'm ready to get out there.
That might go back to that idea I mentioned earlier about being passing the interview. On the appearance before, because Mr. Price used to say this, on the appearance before you got your rec, it's written in the thingy, this guy's good enough. And the next appearance, and I remember this in my own personal experience, that I had Ted Howes, the examiner at the time, and on the last appearance, probably did the worst appearance I've ever done, and he was really, he had a Scottish accent. I'll do my best to he said, "What are you doing in the Euston Road?" And I was like, "Well, that's the route." And he was mocking me as I'm going. And I thought, wow, I've never felt, this is incredible. I'm completely confused and dazed. And he said, "Right, thank you very much. Stand up, read that number plate," which you don't do anymore.
Yeah.
You got your rec. You had to look out the window and read a number plate on the car to see that you got the eyesight to drive a cab. And that was my rec appearance. And then he says, "Right, go away and come back in 14 days again," which you didn't have. And then you do your suburbs after that. But it was hilarious in a sense that and that same thing that we're saying, that it was an interview. Yep. The interview's been passed. So this, in a sense, going on today's standards, let's say I've got 9 points and the next appearance is redlined or pass, get your rec. Well, surely they know if you've done enough.
Yep.
And if I go in there and do badly, really, you're going to take away all that and send me back again. And this is kind of one of my gripes with the scoring system, is the snakes and ladders ideas we've mentioned in the past. There isn't an exam system in the world where you pass an exam and have it taken away from you afterwards. Doesn't make any sense. So you should be able to accumulate your scores. And if you need 12 points, fine. If you want it to be this kind of system, but you think some people might get out too quickly, well, then raise it to 16 points. They need to pass this amount. So this idea of getting to 9 points and then losing those 9 points is just not a good system.
No. I mean, we've talked about this in the past.
Yeah.
I've got what I feel is a better system for how they score. And I think it should work a little bit like tennis, right? You can stay on a level forever until you're either 2 points up or 2 points down. 2 points down, that's it. You're redlined. You had 2 cracks at getting over the line. You haven't done it, but they can keep you on that level forever, because if you're just 1 point away from either red line or so on, you can stay on 56s forever. You don't have to be redlined. You just, you get to 3-all, and now you're at the point where you're 3-all. So you've either got to go 5-3 up or 5-3 down to either get redlined or move forward. And if you go 5-4, that means you've still got another appearance, and you can just keep that person on that level. Because I saw the same thing. Yeah. You saw people that were very good on 56s, but the examiners they knew they weren't good at 28s. They knew that these guys had learnt the runs, but are they going to be able to apply themselves? Because for me, 28s is the knowledge, right? 56s is all about working out who you are as an individual, so on and so forth. 21s is about thinking like a cab driver. Yeah. We want you to stop thinking about the map. We want you to now start thinking about, you got passengers in the back. They've asked you to go somewhere, and it's not necessarily about the most direct route. It's about the most efficient route. Yeah,
you've hit upon the old phrase that they used to use, which is 56 is the establishment of it. 28s, you want to be a cab driver. 21s, they want you to be a cab driver. And it doesn't seem to be following through so much now. It does seem to be on the concept would be now an elevated idea. Your standard needs to be low on 56s, a bit high on 28s, and even higher on 21s, which really, I agree with your view, and my view would be on 21s, please show me how you'd take me from there and to there by being a cab driver. Maybe even thinking a little bit more bus routes, bus lanes that are usable to you, the simplicity of what cab drivers do. Because we all know, I think I might have told this story before, but I remember taking a guy to Crouch End, and it's from way down in Clapham, lower Clapham, Balham maybe. And I remember being very knowledge boyish, and then on the line, it was absolutely wonderful. I did the line that I would have called in an appearance. And he said, why didn't you just go straight up to Blackfriars Bridge and then straight up to... He said, yeah, I don't know. I didn't think of that. He said, all the cab drivers take me that way. Yep. I said, oh, great. I didn't get a tip. Yep. He said, your route was amazing. He said, no tip, no nothing. Yep. And it's that idea we should simplify our routes.
Yep. But I think what you get with that, and, on 21s again, a cab driver would tell you, you've held the line all the way up, but you worn your tyres out, turning corners, cutting off these little corners off here, there, and everywhere.
You probably took longer. You probably took longer. I do remember another small story, and I know I've repeated, so forgive me if the people who are watching are getting repeat stories, but I did do a double cab job from somewhere down in Belgravia to Camden, and I cut Mayfair into pieces. He went Park Lane and Gloucester Place.
There you go.
He was there 20 minutes before me. The passengers were standing there waiting, thinking, where the hell is the other driver? But I'm still finding my way out of a maze. But I'm doing, again, an absolutely lovely route. But he's done 50 mile an hour, not an hour in Park Lane, but he would have done 50 mile an hour in Park Lane and 50 mile an hour in Gloucester Place. Yep. He's now into York Gate and Regent's Park, and he's out the other side and done.
Absolutely.
So you needed to think like that. And I suppose the examiners could accept that kind of thing, which they are doing now more. Over the years, especially in the past, people forgot. They used to think that the journey was about the string and misconstrued the idea that the journey was about distance.
Yep.
Nothing else.
Yep.
Distance is the absolute fact finder to who's got the shortest route. Yep. The best route, that's a whole can of worms. Yep. But the shortest route is a factual thing. And now with examiners, they come up with routes that they maybe are stringy, but are actually longer. And then the person will do the route that's shorter, but not stringy, and they might get marked down for it. That would be overturned because it can be proven that your route is shorter.
I'm not a fan of messing about and making the rules too rigid. I'm really not. I think there has to be an awful lot of flexibility. And whilst I did find the knowledge extremely difficult, I actually have got so much respect for that process because I think it makes you a better cab driver. If you're pushed hard and so on and so forth, and you have to keep on getting out on the bike and kind of learning the roads and everything else, that's going to make you a better cab driver.
Better person even, Alex. Yeah. I mean, the achievement that we have done, I have the utmost respect for every cab driver I ever meet because I know exactly. We're like war veterans. Yeah. We look back and I know what you've been through. Yeah. I know where you were, what you thought, and the problems you had. We've been there, and we deserve a respect from each other in that aspect. Yep. And it is a marvellous thing that we've achieved.
My initial talk was in Penton Street. but very quickly they moved to Palestra from there. So actually all my real appearances were in Palestra, and I found that was really tough. It was
you upstairs Palestra?
Yeah,
downstairs?
so it was, I went downstairs in the foyer, ground floor, and then they called you up in blocks to come up in the lift. And then you just literally there, you had people tearing the arms off the chairs and everything, you know, freaking out. And the examiners, you couldn't see them. You could hear them before you could see them because of the way the hallway worked. So you could hear these people walking down the hallway and you're going, that's me, that's me, that's me. And it scared the life out of me. And actually I did my finals, my rec, and some of my appearances in the next place, which is further down Blackfriars Road.
Yep.
I found that better.
Yeah. Because
you're in that little kind of room where all of the examiners are off the thing. So you didn't have this whole kind of anticipation thing of hearing this examiner walking down the hall. It was, the door would open, Mr. White. And you know, off you go.
That was the best scenario. I think it was better than it currently is now. I think.
Yeah, I haven't been in the new place, so I don't know what that setup's like. But I really liked that setup because you got that kind of, that whole thing out very, very quickly. You didn't have this kind of long drawn out. Is it me? I totted up how much time I spent in the chair, right, and how many appearances I actually did.
Yeah.
I did 24 appearances, and I roughly estimated I did around about 4.5 hours in the chair, right?
Oh, wow.
It was a long time to be put under pressure, and you know, they're really, really teasing it out of you. And it's a long time across, you know, a few years of kind of real pain. But when you get to the end of that is success. Yeah. I don't think I've ever had anything else in my life that has been such a kind of, you've gone from a low point to a high point so quickly, because, you know, especially if you're 3-all on an appearance, right? And 21s, which I've done, 3-all on 21s is probably one of the most horrible situations to be in. Yeah. Because you're either going to pass or you're going to get redlined, right? Yeah. And it's
opening a door or closing a door.
It's horrible. Yeah, truly horrible.
And I don't like it. I don't think it should be that way as well, as we said. I mean, even your system that you mentioned, like a tennis scoring, you're still going to get redlined. I think no, abandon it completely. Go back to the job interview aspect. You're on 12 points. You're on 9 points, for example, and the only decision that needs to be made now is: are they good enough for 28s, or are they good enough for 21s, or are they good enough to drive a cab? Yeah. And that will be left and in the air. They can just keep giving you appearances, and they make that decision. Yeah. So you've acquired that much, which means you have knowledge, and let's just throw them out to the next level when we think it's good and proper. Take away that pressure that's unfair for some people who are really, for those of us that can cope with pressure. My goodness, it's an immense amount of pressure.
It's incredible. As you well know, I was ill throughout most of the knowledge. You know, so it's a well-known fact that I had ME. I was actually diagnosed with it during the knowledge. Examiners actually talked to me about it. When I passed the knowledge, actually one of the examiners said to me, "You're the first person officially with ME to have ever passed the knowledge."
Well, I'm going to play the joke by Ricky Gervais with the ME one, because it's hilarious, that joke. ME, I got ME.
I think that the real difficulty is one of those illnesses that even the doctors don't truly understand.
Are you better?
I'm an awful lot better. I'd actually say today I don't have the illness. Yeah. I'm that much better.
Through medication or just through life?
Medication, moving to a better climate, reducing stress, having a situation where actually my clients now look at me and say, do it whenever you want. Yeah, I don't have time constraints. I don't have pressure put on me, which is, you know, the knowledge is pressure. And that's one of the difficulties. I've got an appearance tomorrow. I can't phone up and say, yeah, can you do it next week? They're not going to put up with that. And this isn't a condition where you can kind of go, well, you know, I'll just push through. It doesn't work like that. And that's another thing I want to say to you, Dean, right? You were very generous, right, with how the school worked, me doing the talks and everything else. And I was really ill at the time. And you guys really gave me an awful lot of flexibility when I needed flexibility.
Oh, well, you more than paid it back.
Yeah, but it's a two-way street, and it worked. It worked for you, the school, and me. And it's an important thing. It really is. You know, the pressure of doing the knowledge is immense. And having a condition that doesn't work well with stress, you're in a hiding to nowhere. And I mean, just recently, and you're welcome to put this out on the podcast. Just in the last 5 years, I've been diagnosed with autism and ADHD. So I've had both of those on the knowledge as well.
You should have come and see me. I diagnosed you with that 15 years ago. You should ask Annette. This geezer's got ADHD and autism.
So when people say, oh, you know, I've got this, I've got that, and I go, look, you've got to look beyond the condition, right? Because as long as you haven't got a hole in your head, you're going to be able to remember stuff, right? And I work, some of my call-over partners had dyslexia and all sorts of other really horrible conditions that you'd look at the knowledge and go, whoa, having dyslexia whilst you're on the knowledge, that's really tough. But they've all passed. They all passed, right? All of the group that I called over with all passed, all of them. And they had an assortment of different, you know, issues going on. Yeah. So you can use that condition as a kind of an excuse. And I'm really not belittling any of those conditions, but you can use that condition as an excuse for why you haven't completed it, or you can kind of keep on trying to find ways round this problem. There was an interesting point in the knowledge for me as well. And I remember going to the counter, this was at Palestra, and I saw David Hall. And at the time, he was kind of acting head examiner. Yeah. And I approached him and I said, sir, can I have a chat with you? And he said, yeah, what about? And I said, right, okay. I've been diagnosed with ME. And really where I'm struggling on this process is I'm really good in the mornings and rubbish in the afternoon, right? And I said, as the further that I go through this process, the more my appearances are going to get pushed later into the day. You know, I don't know if they changed that process now, but it used to be 56 is early, 28's next, and then 21's after. So he said, Alex, you know, I'm going to tell you now that you can have every one of your appearances all the way to your rec at 8 o'clock in the morning if you want them, right? And he said, because it makes no difference to us. Yeah, because you still got to do the appearance. You still got to do all of the questions. You still got to do all of those things. We're not making it easier for you. What we're doing, we're accommodating a condition. Yeah. And I said, sir, that's amazing. I think I can complete the knowledge with that, you know, that accommodation. Yeah. And I remember going into an appearance. I was on 21s, and this 21 was at 8 o'clock in the morning, and it was Mr. Shaw. And I've sat in the chair, and he sat down, and he's looked at me, and he's gone, I don't understand. Why are you here at 8 o'clock in the morning? I haven't even put my 21 questions together. And I said, sir, David Hall said that I could have all my appearances all the way through the knowledge at 8 o'clock in the morning. And he said, if Mr. Hall says that's all right, he said, that's fine. He said, give me a minute. I've now got to come up with today's questions of the 21s. Yeah. And he come up with the questions. I did the questions, and I said to him, sir, it really wouldn't be fair for me to now walk out and give the points collectors
today's 21.
Today's 21. So I said, because you've accommodated me, I'm going to accommodate you, and I'm not going to give the points collectors.
You evil bastard.
But I didn't think it was fair. Right? I really didn't. You know, they've kind of looked after me a little bit, and I thought, you know, I'll reciprocate. So I had a good kind of rapport with the examiners. By the end, you know, I had Mr. McDowell came up to me. I remember that I was on 21s, and he was at the counter. I hadn't had the appearance with him. And he said, how'd you get on today? And I said, oh, sir, I've gone 3-all today. And he went, do you want to finish it today? And I said, sir, I'm game. If you want to pull me back into a room and do that last 21 a day. And he went, only joking.
And Alex, on that note, we have been talking now for over an hour.
Cool.
And We covered some wonderful subjects just then.
Yeah.
It was really nice to talk about the past.